the key terminology about chapter 2. Like there's many, and like hindsight bias and applied research and basic research, hypotheses, independent variable, dependent variable theory, operational definition, validity, reliability, sampling, sample, population, representative sample, random sampling, stratified sampling, experiment laboratory and field, confounding variables, participant and situation relevant, random assignment, control. Group matching, experimental bias, double-blind procedure, single-blind procedure, response or participant bias, social desirability, wholesome flexible method, correlation positive and negative, survey method, response rate, naturalistic observation, case study method, descriptive statistics, frequency distribution, measures of central tendency mean, median, mean. Extreme scores or outliers, positive versus negative score, measures of variability range, standard deviation, variance, z-score, normal curve, correlation coefficient, scatter plot, line of best fit, regression line, inferential statistics, sampling error, p-value, statistical significance, Institutional Review Board (IRB), coercion, informed consent, anonymity, confidentiality, debriefing, debriefing. So there are many key terms. So after you learn this chapter 2 method, you will learn about the meaning of this terminology. And may you already heard about some terminology of some, like for example, like the Houston effect or flexible method like this. Have you?
I haven't, I have heard, but I have not really like know what it means.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So yeah, let's continue the next one. Okay, so firstly, let's look at the research methods. So actually, psychology is a kind of like science. So there is many different methodology could be applied. So it is therefore based on research. So we can just apply some statistics like a technique. Though people are often guided effectively by their common institution. Usually people just guided common institution, but sometimes it leads us astray. Yeah, there is some like side effect or something, some mistake. People had the tendency, often hearing about research findings and many other things, to think that they knew it all along. So, this tendency is called hindsight bias. So, may you will know clearly about the terminology hindsight bias. Yeah, this is the thing, the tendency. So yeah, so they will just uh, hearing about research finding to think about they knew it all along. After an event occurs, it is relatively easy to explain why it happened. Yeah. The goal of scientific research, however, is to predict what will happen in advance. Yeah, this is the real goal, in advance, not later. An understanding of research methods is fundamental of psychology. Because of that, you are more likely to see a free response or essay question on this topic than on any other. And next page. Sometimes psychologists conduct research in order to solve practical problems. Practical problem, for instance, for example, psychologists might compare two different methods of teaching children to read in order to determine which method is better, or they could design and test the efficacy of a program to help people quit smoking. Yeah, this is a good example. Yeah. This type of research is known as applied research. Applied, because it has clear practical application. So you will know the meaning of the terminology applied research. And other psychologists conduct basic research. For example, basic research explores questions that are of interest to psychologists but are not intended to have immediate real-world applications. Examples of basic research would include studying how people form their attitudes about others, and how people in different cultures define intelligence. These are good examples about basic research. So there are two kinds of research. So maybe this explanation is very clear, so you will understand what it means. And let's go over the terminology. So there are some terminology. Number one is hypothesis and variables. And number two is validity and reliability. Number three is sampling. Number four is experimental method. And number five is correlational method. And number six is naturalistic observation. Number seven is case studies. Number eight is statistics. And statistics also include more some like carry categories. So let's do number one, hypotheses and variables. So there are the terminology hypotheses. So although some research is purely descriptive, but most psychological research is guided by hypotheses. It is not very descriptive, just still like hypothesis. If something happened, like for example, a hypothesis expresses a relationship between two variables. And what is variables? Variables, by definition, are things they can vary among the participants in the research. For example, specifically, religion, stress level, and height can be variables. According to our own experimental hypothesis, the independent variable depends on the independent variable. Yeah, dependent variable depends on the independent variable. In other words, a change in the independent variable will produce a change in the dependent variable. For example, consider a hypothesis that watching violent television program make people more aggressive. This is a hypothesis. In this hypothesis, watching television violence is the independent variable, since the hypothesis suggests that a change in television viewing will result in a change in behavior. In testing a hypothesis, researchers manipulate an independent variable and measure the dependent variable. They just manipulate. Hypotheses often grow out theories. Sometimes grow out of theories. A theory aims to explain some phenomenon and allow researchers to generate testable hypotheses with the help of collecting data to support the theory. The researchers not only need to name the variables they will study, they need to provide operational definition of them. When you operationalize a variable, you can explain how you will measure it. For example, in the hypothesis above, what programs will be considered violent? What behaviors will be considered aggressive? These and many other questions need to be answered before the research commences. The operationalization of variables raises many issues about the validity and reliability of the research. So the last sentence, just to refer the new terminology, validity and reliability of the research. So is it clear? Do you have any question?
Right. No question so far. It's about the hypothesis with its dependent and independent variables. It is well explained. So
okay,
yeah,
good.
I understand that.
Okay, so then let's go over to validity and reliability explanation. So, good research is both valid and valuable, two things. They include two variables. Research is valid. It means when it measures what the research set out to measure, it is accurate. So it is really related accuracy. Research is reliable when it can be replicated. It is consistent if the researcher conducted the same research in the same way. The researcher would get similar research. So it means like reliability. So when you can see the like left side, there is a tip, the like blackboard. You can see that when writing about research, students often describe the goal of as proof of the hypothesis. However, proving a hypothesis is impossible. Rather, research aims to gather data that either supports or disproves the hypothesis. So this is a tip. So you just remember and then check. This is like a kind of like tip. Or maybe later they will say again about validity and reliability, because this terminology is quite important for the research, especially psychology field. And let's go over next one, sampling. People one can begin to investigate a hypothesis. One need to decide who or what to study. Yeah, so what you are going to study? So who do you conduct the study? So who participate in the study like this? The individuals on which the research will be conducted are called participants or subject. Yeah, the people or the member or the things we called participants. And the process by which participants are selected is called sampling. Yes. So now you will know the terminology participant and sampling. In order to select a sample, the group of participants, one must first identify the population, the number of people from which the sample will be selected. The population includes anyone or anything that could possibly be selected to be in the sample. The goal in selecting a sample is that it be representative of a larger population. It is a kind of like a representative of the big group, mass group. If I conduct my research about television violence using only my own psychology students, I cannot say much about how viewing violent television affects other people. My students may not be representative of a larger population. They're just a small group. So I would be better off specifying a larger and more diverse population. For example, the whole student body of 1,000, and then randomly selecting a sample of 100 among them. This is the process of sampling. Yeah, randomly. The definition of random selection is that every member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. Random selection increases the likelihood that the sample represents the population and that one can generalize the findings to the larger population. And do you understand what it means?
Yeah,
Yeah.
is it about like just picking anyone
Yeah,
randomly?
yeah, randomly. Then there's more likelihood. Yeah, the sample represent the population, and one can generalize the findings to the larger population. Yeah, it's a kind of tendency. So, note, the psychologists use the term random differently than lay people. The terminology random differently than lay people. If I choose my sample by standing in front of the library on a Wednesday morning and approaching people in a way I feel is random, I have not used random sampling. Perhaps, without realizing it, I was less likely to approach people I did not know or people wearing college sweatshirt. Since they would not stand an equal chance of being selected for the study, the selection process is not random. In addition, the method just described would not yield the representative sample of the school's population. Not everybody will walk past the library on Wednesday morning. People who do not will have no chance of being selected for the study and therefore are not part of the population. So, random population is best done using a computer, a table of random numbers, or the tried and true method of picking names out of a hat. Yeah. So like on the right side, there is a box and the gray color. Let's look at that. Selecting a sample randomly, it is a good thing to maximize the chance that it will represent the population from which it was drawn and allows researchers to draw generalization about the population based on their findings about their sample. This is very positive thing. That's why many study and psychologists use this method, random method. It can easily generalize. And let's move back. Even if I randomly select a sample of 100 people, the school's population of 1,000, clearly the sample will probably not perfectly reflect the composition of the school. For instance, the school has exactly 5 males and 5 females in it. What are the chances that my random sample will have the same 1 versus 1 ratio? Although it is to represent the population, a sample of all 1,000 students guarantees that it is perfectly representative, and a sample of 1 person guarantees that it is far from representative. So now, why not use all 1,000 students? The downside of a large sample is time and money. Yeah, this is the problem, biggest problem, one of the biggest problem. More time and money. Yeah, we can easily predict like that, expect. Also realizing that the population psychologists, so they are often much larger than 1,000 people is important. So 10,000, 100,000 like that. Therefore, for research to use large but not prohibitively large samples is considered optimal. Statistics can be used to determine how large a sample should be in order to represent a population of any particular size. If asked on the advanced placement examination to design your own research, you should specify the size of your sample and avoid using samples of extreme sizes. One additional action can be taken to increase the likelihood that the sample will represent the larger population from which it was chosen. Stratified sampling is a process that allows a researcher to ensure that the sample represents the population on some criteria. For instance, if I saw that participants of different racial groups might respond differently. Different racial groups might respond differently. I would want to make sure that I represented each race in my sample in the same proportion that it appears in the overall population. In other words, if 500 of the 1,000 students in a school are Caucasian, 300 are African American, and 200 are Latino, in a sample of 100 students, I would want to have 50 Caucasian, 30 African American, and 20 Latinos. To that end, I could first divide the names of potential participants into each of the three racial groups. And then I could choose a random subsample of the desired size from each group. So today we've learned some terminology, especially about hypotheses and variables and validity and reliability and sampling. So especially the sampling is really important, especially statistics of psychology field. So later, it just can be repeated again and again and again. And then maybe the next terminology tomorrow we will discuss about experimental method. So it will also we have to know about the previous terminology that we discussed today. So do you have any question about the sampling and then up to now we discussed about?
No, not so far. I actually have some inputs about random sampling and then the stratified, which is very well distinguished. So I got some idea about that,
Yeah,
especially with the examples.
yeah. So the example is very clear and also the explanation is very easy. So maybe you will catch well about the important idea about the topic of this terminology. So this I really pleased to to listen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really love like listening to this kind of things, especially when it comes to technical terms, because you really explained it well.
Yeah. So may you have we have only like 2 minutes just left, and then I really actually keen about sampling actually later to accurate study and then to get more validity and reliability. Sampling is quite important, so how to sample the person and the participant is quite important, and especially to study the field and the psychologist very critically. They just look at their journal or for the perspectives of critical look. So really sometimes it is really difficult field, but it is interesting field. I just want to introduce you. It is really interesting and fun. Yeah. So I think time is already off, so let's call it a day.
Oh, that was really fast. Like to learn something like that. Time just passed quickly.
Okay. Yeah. So, and enjoy your day and then have a good day.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with me, and I really appreciate every bit of it. So thank you, and have a great day ahead to Kim. I'll see
Yeah.
you tomorrow.
Okay. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.